The ego loves to be better or worse than others. It loves to have a worse victim story or a more sad victim story than other people. I know this because I've experienced this myself. Our victim story allows us to gain more sympathy and attention through this sad story that we're holding on to. I'm Steph, and I'm super excited to bring you part 2 of The One Relationship You Must End in 2025. If you haven't seen part 1, definitely go watch that before you start this video. You can find a link right here. Hit that video up first and then come back to finish it out. So without further ado, here is part 2. So when we set this backpack down, at first it's going to feel really freeing and light and like, wow, I can actually set this down and I can live my life without this heavy weight that I've been carrying around. And it's going to feel amazing for a little while until you start to feel like something's missing. Like, this doesn't feel right. I shouldn't feel this light. And almost like if you've been wearing a coat for 5 years and never taken it off, and then you take off this coat, all of a sudden you're going to start to feel more cold. That attachment to that story has become our baseline and what feels normal to us. Our brains and bodies are going to seek that out to try to kind of go back to that home state of what feels like home, what feels comfortable. And this is why if a person grows up in a really high stress environment, they're actually more likely to seek out and create stressful situations in their lives, like through relationships. If you grew up with parents who were constantly fighting all the time and that's all you knew, then getting into a really peaceful and low conflict relationship will feel uncomfortable and unnatural and probably feel really boring. So that person is more likely to seek out another relationship that has a lot of those same patterns of high stress, high conflict. Basically, going back to our little mountain guy, there's still an anchor. And just because we got rid of the rope doesn't mean we got rid of the anchor. So that's what we need to work on, is getting rid of that. Now, one of the important things to do is self-evaluation. So we need to start asking ourselves, what am I getting out of this? What am I getting out of this anchor, of this story? We will never do something that we believe at our core is harmful for us. So we're always getting something out of these experiences that have developed as patterns in our lives. For instance, if we have an anchor here of unhealthy romantic relationships or finding partners who we feel that we need to fix, what we're getting out of that is we avoid having to look at ourselves and deal with our own problems, which is the really painful thing. So our bodies are seeing this as a good thing. We don't have to look at our own issues. We get to be the good one or the healthy one. We also get sympathy from friends and family for being treated so poorly and in such a bad situation. You poor thing, you shouldn't have to go through this. These are the things that our friends and family might say. And what are we getting out of that? We're getting something positive from that. Now, it might be a little masochistic when you really think about it, but there is something positive that we're gaining from this anchor point. And getting rid of this anchor point can feel scary. Like, well, what else am I going to do? How else am I going to function? And that's why these things are so complex and challenging to actually overcome and actually see a different result in our lives. This is why every year we go through the same type of patterns, and it's just annually the same type of issues that keep coming up, like Groundhog's Day.
To the groundhog.
And until we really break these patterns and figure out how to make new ones, then we're going to keep experiencing the same thing. So let's get to really breaking up with the victim story. Now, like breaking up with any toxic or abusive partner, leaving your victim story behind is not usually a one and done situation. When you try to leave a toxic partner, they will inevitably try to come back and suck you back in. This cycle can be very hard to break, as they will start to improve their behavior, try to convince you to take them back, but without really doing the deep work necessary to maintain this behavior change, inevitably things just go right back to how they were before. Oftentimes they really do want things to change and they want to become a better person. Till they've done all this deep work that you're starting to do right now, nothing's really going to be able to change because they're still too deeply attached to their own victim story to make that change and shift in order to show up differently to your relationship. So you take them back and lo and behold, it goes right back to how it was before. The only way to really deal with it is to go completely cold turkey, stop taking their calls, stop entertaining their pleas, and completely ignore them. And we have to treat our victim story the exact same way. Any amount of allowance for it will give it all the leverage it needs to come back and take over the nervous system and get its foothold back into you and get that anchor put back in place. And also, because this is part of your ego, your identity has been wrapped up in this this story. So when you try to get rid of it, it will do everything it can to come back and get you to buy into that old story again. And then all of a sudden you find yourself carrying this backpack around again, wondering how it got there. How did it get back on my shoulders? When I put this down, it will come back, and sometimes with a vengeance. So we have to be really, really diligent about breaking this cycle and creating a new story and a new pattern. And it's basically just constantly setting that backpack down over and over again, having that awareness and making a new decision, reinforcing this new behavior pattern. So sometimes it's so subtle and we can't quite tell if we're identifying with the old pattern or the new pattern. And the number one key way to tell is listening to your body. So the old story will feel like contracting, shrinking, tightening, getting smaller, getting more constricted. And the new story will feel like expanding. It'll feel like expansion, growth, and increase of life. Here you're going to be increasing energy, and here you're going to be decreasing your energy. So if you start to pay attention to what's happening in your body, if your body is constricting, your blood vessels are constricting, your heart rate's speeding up, and things are just feeling tighter, then you've slipped back into an old pattern. If you're feeling more expansive, more free, lighter, then you're starting to break the old cycle. This old cycle brings us down in the emotional chart, and this new cycle will bring us up. So you'll feel more peace, love, bliss. And this old cycle, more anger, more apathy, jealousy, and all those heavier, more dense emotions. So if we start to pay attention to what's happening in our nervous system and in our bodies in that solid state, then we'll be able to identify which state of being we're currently in, and we can break that pattern and make a different choice. Now, whether you believe it or not, you're actually always making a choice. It's just most of the time when you're choosing this, it's unconscious. And when you're choosing this, it's mostly conscious, because you have to interrupt the pattern in order to get to that point where you can make a new choice. So how to leave the old story behind? First, we need to disidentify from it. We need to recognize that you are not your story. Detach from the story being part of who you are. It's not who you are. It's just some things that happened to you in the past, and we don't want to bring those things with us to the future, so we need to detach. The second is radical acceptance of what is. You have to just accept that the things that happened to you did, and the more we can accept that it happened, the more we can forgive and let it go. And when I say forgive, I do not mean in a way that absolves somebody of responsibility and accountability for their actions. But what we do when we forgive is we take that backpack off and set it down. We no longer carry it with us. The behavior of the other person is their responsibility and their own burden and backpack that they need to deal with. And it's not yours to carry around anymore. You've carried it long enough, and it's time to let it go. It's time to set it down and let it go. If we continue to hold on to it and keep it in our energy field here, and we continue to allow it to live within us, this actually will cause a lot of physical health issues in our lives. Constricted arteries, heart disease is quite literally disease of the heart. So if we're just holding on to anger and resentment for the things that happened in the past, even if it was yesterday, it's time to let it go. Getting it out of your system so that your system can be cleaned and cleared and purified and break these cycles that you've been living in. There's nothing we can do to go back and change the past. So we really need to just accept that it happened, set it down, and move forward. So one way that can actually be helpful in doing this is to literally visualize yourself wearing this backpack of all the heavy weights of your past story and your past traumas, and then visualize taking this backpack off and setting it down and walking away. Now, the next step is a hypervigilance for when it inevitably tries to wriggle its little way back into our lives. Kind of bargains with us that we should keep hanging on to it because that's just what we're used to. And the system is just comfortable in this state of being, but we've got to program ourselves to be comfortable with this new state of being. If you've seen the movie Tangled, there's actually a brilliant illustration of this when Rapunzel leaves the tower for the first time and she gets out and suddenly she's feeling so free and amazing, and she's singing this song and jumping around and putting her feet in the grass and feeling the water that she's never experienced any of this stuff before because she's been locked away in a tower. And then it doesn't take much time for her to be a complete mess and disaster.
I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I did this! Mother would be so furious.
She's feeling this immense guilt that she's free now, and she's feeling guilty that her mother, who's not actually her mother but her captor, is going to be upset with her.
Okay, I mean, what she doesn't know won't kill her, right? Oh my gosh, this would kill her.
She's wrestling with this back and forth of like feeling free to feeling just like the absolute worst person ever for leaving the tower.
This is so fun! I am a horrible daughter. I'm going back.
I am never going back!
I am a despicable human being.
Best day ever!
And so we actually get a really good illustration of what this looks like when you try to walk away from your old story and you try to set that backpack down. It's just going to find its way back onto your back, and you just have to keep remembering to take it off, and that it's okay, and that it's safe to let go of this old state of being. It's safe to walk away, and it's safe to move into a new territory of freedom.
You know, I can't help but notice you seem a little at war with yourself here.
The only thing that is telling you you need to hold on to this victim story is your past conditioning. So there's some sort of past belief within you that says being happy should be a challenge, or that being happy is for other people and not you. But that's just not true, because happiness is the baseline of who you really are to begin with. And everything else is just baggage and just weight that's been put on you. It's passed down from many generations. Because if your parents taught you to be like this, where do you think they got that from? They didn't just come up with it either. It's from their parents and their parents, and just where the phrase generational trauma comes into play. You have to be the cycle breaker, and you have to be the first one to say, no, I am not going to accept this anymore. No, this is not who I want to be. This is not the story I want to move forward with. I want freedom and happiness. I am happiness, and I want freedom from my past. This is my new story that I'm going to move forward with. So again, if you start to feel this feeling, then you'll know that the old story is trying to come back and suck you in. Now, there's one more piece of this that I want to talk about, and that is you have to allow yourself to grieve the old story. When you look back on your life and you discover that you've been living this way, you've been gradually conditioned to be this version of yourself. Moving out of it, like with the Rapunzel example, it can be scary and it can feel really unsettling. And one of the things we need to do is allow ourselves to grieve the loss of this version of ourselves. And that might sound really strange, but it's really important that we acknowledge all the stuff that can come up when we are setting out to make a change. So all this stuff lives within our body. It's living down in here in our lower 3 chakras here. And if we don't allow ourselves to grieve as it comes up, because the way that it is released, it's going to come up, and that's when it feels like it's getting really intense. You're going to feel the anger that you've been suppressing all these years. Whatever emotions that you've been really suppressing down into these lower 3 chakras, as it comes up to be released, you're going to start feeling that more. And that's part of the process. So you really have to allow yourself to grieve the loss of these things that have been buried deep within, and allow those feelings to come up and be felt. So what we're doing through this process is we're transmuting all of these buried, stuck emotions. So as they're coming up to be released, as we feel them and allow ourselves to grieve it, that's when it actually shifts to a different state, and we release, and we can start to feel lighter. Allow that process to look like whatever it might look like for you, but allow that grief process to happen so that you can really once and for all start to get rid of this story that you've been carrying with you for so long. And like, you're just going to become this beautiful ray of light to others. Once you do this, you're going to start to show other people that this is possible, and people are going to start to ask you how you're doing this, how are you making these changes, what is different about you. Something is so different. The other thing we don't often talk about is that we're going to release and let go of some of the people that we once carried with us. The people that resonated with this version of you are not going to resonate with this version of you, and vice versa. So there's a lot going on when we set out to make this shift, but it can be done, and you can do it. 2025 is your year, baby. Okay, so final thing is that we now need to get comfortable with this new baseline. The more comfortable you can become with this new version of yourself, the less comfortable this version of yourself will be hanging around. Let this be your new baseline. So some reflection questions that you can ask yourself, and these are great to journal about. just watching this video, you might have a couple aha moments, but what's gonna really start this shift in this process to actually happen and go from something you're just thinking about and looking at somebody drawing on a whiteboard about to actually changing your life, you can ask yourself these questions and write this down. So the first question is, what is my victim story? This is where your radical acceptance is going to begin. Take a half hour or however long it takes and really sit with yourself and write out your victim story. Allow tears to flow, allow emotions to come up. Don't react to them, but don't suppress them either. Just allow those feelings to be there and write this out. Now, if you are not feeling safe to do something like this, it can be helpful to work alongside a therapist for this type of process. So if you're feeling unsafe with your own emotions and your body, then don't do this by yourself. Do this alongside the guidance of a therapist. But first, you want to write out, what is my victim story? What have I been telling myself? What story has been filtering the lens of my reality and causing me to have possibly distorted memories, but also just distorted experiences because I've been living from this old story? What is that victim story for you? We all have a different victim story, but we've all got one. So write it down, take some time and really just sit with it. Allow this stuff to come up and just have that radical acceptance of the story. The second is, what am I making this mean about me? Your story might be that you grew up being overly criticized as a child. Now, what are you making that mean about you? That might be, I'm not good enough. It could mean that success has to be a serious struggle, or it could even mean you're not successful unless somebody else is criticizing your work. How might that play out in your life? You might be seeking out criticism. You might be doing things unintentionally that sabotage you because you're looking for that negative feedback. So what am I making this mean about me? And sit with that one for a while and really dig deep into all the possible things that could be meaning about you for each aspect of this story of yours. Next question is this 100% true? Am I truly unworthy of love? Is it 100% true that I am unworthy of being wealthy? Ask yourself this question because it's important that all of this comes from within and not from somebody else telling you. So don't go to your parents or best friend to ask them these questions. Just have some time to yourself and just work through this on your own. Or, like I said, alongside a therapist if you're not feeling safe to explore these things on your own. 4 is, what is a belief I prefer? So if the meaning that you've been making is that you're unworthy of money, what is a belief that you prefer to have? Well, it might be that I am worthy of money. I am worthy of being wealthy just like other people are worthy of having money. It might be a belief like, I am worthy of love. I am worthy of being in a healthy relationship. And these are some beliefs you might prefer. So start to explore that. What are basically the opposite of the belief that we've been carrying around? And what are the beliefs that we really prefer? What are the beliefs that we would like to choose for ourselves? The 5th question is, which belief will take me to the path of where I want to go? Is it the old belief of I'm not worthy of love, I'm not worthy of money? Or is it the belief that I am worthy of love, I am worthy of money? And now the next question is a really important one that can easily be overlooked. But how willing am I to let go of my victim story? And again, radical honesty, radical acceptance here. So on a scale of 1 to Rapunzel, how willing are you to let go of your victim story? Are you willing to actually take the leap and get out of your tower and your imprisonment? This is a time to get really honest with yourself and see and evaluate where you are, because it's easy to just say, yeah, of course I'm ready and I'm willing to get out of my victim story. But how willing am I to do this work? How willing am I to really explore these emotions and feel these things that I've been stuffing down deep inside and just ignoring and pretending that it's not even there? How willing am I to go to those places in order to experience this new reality? And this is exactly why this channel is called From the Depths, because I was in this place for a very long time and I didn't even know it. I didn't even realize, I didn't know why. And when I started to understand what was happening and what it would take of me, I realized that we really have to be willing to go deep down and get down to the root of all this stuff in order to rise up from the depths. So that's where the name of this channel even came from. And finally, number 7, what would I need to believe in order to be more ready to let it go? So we don't need to go from a 0 to a 10. If this is our scale and right now you're feeling that you're at a 1, like, okay, I recognize that I want to be here, but I'm really not willing to start doing this work. It's okay to be where you're at right now. In fact, that's actually kind of perfect. Wherever you are right now, there's still lessons to be learned in this place. So again, radical acceptance, just allow it. So what would I need to believe in order to be more ready to let it go? So this might be, what would I need to believe in order to be at a 2 instead of a 1? If you're currently at a 1 state right now, it might not be the best idea to try to jump to a 10. It's important to acknowledge where we're at right now and gradually move up this ladder. You might need to just start believing that I'm capable and like kind of turn up the mouth corners a little, like just a tiny bit more. Wow, that's beautiful. Just a teeny tiny bit of a upturned corner of the mouth, not this big giant smile. So when do you want to use these journaling questions? I would say if you can commit to a daily journaling practice to start exploring some of these things and just start to see what comes up. You don't have to answer all these questions for yourself all at one time. It might be helpful to start with the first question, what is my victim story? And take a couple of weeks to just sit with that and figure out, what is this story that I've been telling myself? What are the weights that I've been carrying around that have been weighing me down? What even is it that I'm holding on to? Because so often in our lives, we're actually just suppressing all of this that we don't even know that we're holding on to it. Another time that's great to use this is anytime a trigger arises. Sitting with those questions right at that moment, at the time the trigger arises or after you've noticed that it happened, is a great time to reflect on this when it's still fresh in your mind and you can recall all the emotions that you experienced and that pattern, and you can write it down and put it on paper. That'll help you start to detach from that as being an identity that you keep within yourself and get it out of your body and just start to see what's coming up for you. So ultimately, if you want to see changes in your life and you want 2025 to be your year and the year that things start to go better for you, you're gonna have to break up with your victim story. It's got to go. But like turning around a massive ship, this is going to take some time and some diligent practice. So let it take time. Stay gentle with your heart and allow feelings to arise and pass. Don't suppress them and don't express them, but feel them. And don't tell yourself this is a challenging process. Just trust that it will work and start to put some of this stuff into practice. You can either have faith in your victim story or faith in your empowerment story, but not both. So choose the one that will take you down the path that you prefer. The choice is and always will be yours and yours alone. This is your life. This is your exercise in free will. Choose and choose again. In every moment, keep choosing. Keep making that choice that's going to get you to the version of yourself that you want to be. What version of yourself do you want to show up as in this world? And make that choice every single day, in every moment that you can. And if you forget the entire day until right before bed, that's okay. Just remember again. Once you get into the habit of remembering and making this choice more conscious, then it's going to get easier and easier and things will start to flow faster and faster for you. And in 2025, this could be the new version of yourself that starts to emerge. I'm rooting for you. This is your year, my friend, and you can do it. I'm on your side and here to support you through it all. Don't forget to subscribe so we can continue hanging out through this new year, and together we will rise up from the depths.